Good morning, everyone. I am just testing out my technology over here, starting a little bit late once again, but I am happy to be here. It is Wednesday, so welcome to Unwired. I am your host, Outspoken Samantha, and I really do appreciate every single one of you being here, whether it's just a couple people or if more show up. I do need you guys to let me know if you can hear me because I have been trying to test out my technology and make sure everything is going well. But sometimes that is a little bit tricky to figure out. So make sure that you do hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you like this video, and all of those things are a great way to support my channel and to help me to grow this channel, grow the audience, and reach people with, I think, some very important conversations. Today, we're going to do a quick campaign check-in with our two favorite candidates. As most of you are probably aware, Trump did make an appearance at a McDonald's, which I thought was a very interesting choice of campaign stop, but seemed to be a really big hit with most people. And Kamala didn't do that, though she does claim to have worked at McDonald's at some point in her life, though she seems very unable or unwilling to prove that little point, even though that seems to be something that should be easy to prove. But she is doing more interviews where it seems like her voice is going up the more anxious that she gets about how this election may turn out. So we're going to look at a couple of those clips. Also, beta males like Ben Stiller and Andy Cohen are now using their platforms to encourage dads to vote for Kamala Harris because their daughters need abortions, because why else? What other issue are we allowed to think about these days? And lastly, there is a story that we do need to discuss that is not getting enough attention. It is about the recent imprisonment of a pro-life activist, and we need to get more eyes on this particular issue. So all of those things are what we are going to talk about today. So let's get into it now. All righty, so let me open up my chat here, make sure I know who is joining. Thank you, Casey, for letting me know that the sound is good. I have a new computer set up here. So what happens is when I try to play clips, I can't hear it myself. So you guys are going to have to let me know when I play the clips if you can hear them, because that was an issue I ran into last week when I kept replaying the Jennifer Garner clip because I couldn't hear it on my end, even though looking back at the live stream and listening to it, I realized that you guys could actually hear it, and you ended up having to listen to me play that clip over and over and over again, even though I couldn't hear it. So I can't hear the clips when I play them, so you guys are going to have to let me know how the sound is, just because when I have my mic plugged in, it messes with my speakers. So just a technical issue I'm going to have to figure out. But as long as you guys can hear them, I already know what the clips say. So we're just going to move forward and see how it goes. Drop a comment. Let me know how you guys are doing, where you're listening from, what state you're in, whether it be the state that you live in or the mental state that you are experiencing right now. I would love to know how everybody is doing. And particularly if you are hiding under your desk and your boss doesn't know that you listen to podcasts and YouTube videos while you're working. But let's get into it, because we have several things that we need to talk about today. As always, I love hearing your guys' comments. I love the engagement, and I love having these conversations, which is why I continue to do these live streams, as technically challenging as they can be. Sometimes I do actually prefer the interaction with real people versus just constantly recording videos and just talking to myself. So even though I do enjoy that as well, it's just this part of it is really fun for me. So happy Wednesday. So the first thing we are going to talk about today is, I'm sure that most of you, let me make sure I've got the correct clips lined up in the correct order. So Trump greetings from the southwest region of Cameroon. Really? Now that is interesting. I think that is a first for my channel. Well, welcome. Welcome to my channel. So let's get into this. So you guys saw that Trump pretty much broke the internet the other day as he decided to make a campaign stop at McDonald's. And I would love to hear what you guys thought about this particular choice, but he stopped in, he learned how to make fries, and I'm pretty sure, rumor has it, that he actually fixed the ice cream machine as well. So if he did, I've heard that that is just going to secure the election for him because nobody in the history of mankind has been able to figure that thing out. But this stop on the campaign trail was a hit with the workers. It was a hit with everyday people because, believe it or not, spending time with us peasants is a far more relatable message, is a far more relatable, I don't know, photo op, even if you want to call it that. It's a relatable message when it comes to showing us who you work for, that you know as a presidential candidate, who your supporters are, who is really standing behind you, who is really getting you where you need to be, and who it is that you stand for. And standing alongside a McDonald's worker while making French fries is a far more relatable campaign stunt than, say, perhaps hiring somebody like Julia Roberts or Jennifer Garner or Jessica, is it Jessica Alba, to speak to potential voters on your behalf. So I think it's just much more relatable. And I think at this particular time, when people are struggling, when they have said, we are struggling, we can't afford groceries, can't afford food, can't afford gas, can't afford our homes, can't afford to do anything. And that disparity between us and the Hollywood elite is so much bigger than it's ever been. I honestly think it's more insulting than ever to rely on the presence of Hollywood celebrities to push your campaign, whereas spending time with people that are working, at these regular jobs, people want to feel seen. People want to feel like their presidential campaign understands what it is that they're going through, what it is, that their everyday lives look like. So I just think that it was a genius move. Also because Kamala Harris has claimed to work at McDonald's at one point in time in her life, even though the story behind that has changed a couple of times, whether she was doing it just to save up money, just for extra spending money, or another version of the story is that she was saving up for college, putting it towards her college expenses, even though she did come from a very, a pretty well-off family that I don't believe she had to pay for her college tuition. So there's just a lot of inconsistency in that story, but she doesn't seem to want to clarify the record on pretty much anything. She just wants to be able to make claims and then not have to back those things up. And to me, that seems like it would be something that would be pretty easy to prove. But let's just look at a couple of these clips because I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was relevant. I thought it was genius. So this is just one where he is simply being shown how to make French fries. And he, as we know, Trump does have a reputation for his enjoyment of French fries. So let me go back to the beginning here. So again, you guys let me know if you can hear this because I cannot hear the clips while my mic is plugged in. So I've just got to go off of what I already know these clips are. So here it is.
It up. Keep it tight. You got the salt on it. Never touches the human hand.
Very good. Very
Nice
good.
and full.
Thank you.
Good. It up.
And I just love so much about this. He's taking direction from somebody else. He is engaging with the employee. He's not taking charge. He's not taking over the job. He's humbling himself and listening to their direction because they are, probably the expert in this particular area of making French fries. And it's just a very humbling message, appearance, whatever you want to call it. So I appreciated that. One of my favorite clips from this whole interaction, of course, we had people coming through the drive-through, and that's the wrong one. That's one we will get to in a little bit here. But of course, he had people coming through the drive-through, which I thought, can you imagine actually getting your Happy Meal from hopefully what is the future president of the United States. But people are talking to him. You can see people out there, taking pictures, trying to get a glimpse of the president, and people coming through the drive-thru and just having conversations with him. So this was actually one of my favorite clips because I loved how he interacted with this particular family and just made the conversation about them. Sorry, my cat is now trying to pull the light down beside me. So that's fun. So let's listen to this particular little clip because this was my favorite of all of them.
I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again.
Thank you.
Look at that. Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
I mean, thank you so much
You are
for
not
everything
ordinary.
you do.
I can see.
We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
When you think about it, I guess that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job.
All right. And I would love to let me know a thumbs up if you guys can hear that. I just need to have the confirmation. But I love that he told this man, you guys aren't ordinary. He made it about them. He basically just in these unscripted moments, which are honestly far more common with Trump than scripted moments. Everything about him just seems to be off the cuff, and he is just coming up with it as he goes along. And he uplifts people. He tells them, you're not an ordinary person. He bridges that gap between himself and them. And in that moment, there's no difference between him as a billionaire and this guy who is just bringing his family through the McDonald's drive-thru to get some lunch. And I honestly think that that's the kind of thing that makes the Kamala Harris campaign just infuriated, because it's something they haven't really been able to portray, because it's not something that you can fake. And I think that you can tell that people really believe that this man is genuine because they will show up for him. They will attend these events. They don't have to be, in a setting. They don't have to get a ticket to an event. They don't have to show up at a venue. They don't have to do anything but just want to be on the same street block as President Trump. And I think it's because they feel that sincerity from him, because that's just something that you cannot pretend to have. People can either sense it in you or they can't. And so we have this massive crowd outside of the McDonald's. These people know they're not going to go in and be able to shake his hand. They know that they're not going to actually be able to speak to this man, but just being, within a block of him to show their support, I think speaks to just how much people can tell that he cares, and that, it's something that it just comes naturally to who he is as a person. All of his faults, he's not a perfect human being. He has things that he does that, of course, are worthy of criticism. I can understand why people don't like things about his personality, but in general, I am so sorry. My cat is going to knock the light over. But just in general, people appreciate who he is and what he does for them, and just being willing to stoop to our level and show up and make some French fries. So this is the crowd that was outside of the McDonald's, and this was in Pennsylvania, just showing up to show support for him. I just thought that was so fun, and the energy is there. People are excited, they're happy. They have police presence there, but there's no violence, there's no chaos, there's nobody yelling and screaming and causing problems. It's just such a different energy. And of course, sorry, I've got this clip playing here. Of course, it just seems like something that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the elite in Hollywood and the media have absolutely no idea how to do. They don't know how to drum up this genuine excitement for their campaign. So we have Tim Walz, who went on The View to pretty much tell these McDonald's workers that they need to be insulted by this display. And this is, what Tampon Tim had to say.
She actually worked in a McDonald's. She didn't go and pander and disrespect McDonald's workers by standing there in your red tie and take a picture. She actually worked in a McDonald's. She didn't go and pander and disrespect McDonald's workers by standing there in your red.
And he's telling McDonald's workers that they need to be insulted, that they need to, just feel like this isn't something that, the president is looking down on them. And I just don't think people are buying it. I don't think that they're buying this fake outrage. I don't, they're not being convinced to be insulted by this. They see it for what it is. And I think the outrage campaign is I think it's honestly wearing people out. I don't think people want to hear it anymore. I think people are tired of being beaten down. They're tired of being yelled at, tired of being criticized, tired of being told to be angry about everything. Because ultimately, I don't think people, Akam, you said that the clip didn't have sound. Which one? The one that I just played of Tim Walz? Let me know. Ultimately, I don't think people want to be outraged anymore. People don't want to be yelled at. They don't want to be discouraged. And I think that's a lot of the reason that a lot of people have been attracted to voting for Trump this time around, because while the 2020 campaign against Trump was entirely based on his mean tweets and his personality and being off-putting, I think people are seeing through that and they're like, you know what, he's really not that bad, especially when you consider the energy that surrounds the Kamala Harris campaign, when everybody essentially, just sounds really angry most of the time, or they just look like they want to die. And I don't think that can be any more on display than this clip here. I have a clip of, let's see. Yep, this is Kamala Harris sitting down with Liz Cheney, who I think we're all just kind of waiting for Liz to finally switch her official political affiliation, because she's not a Republican. She does not align with the Republican Party on anything. She's about as far left as they get. So you know what, Liz? I mean, just do us all a favor and switch your affiliation to the party that you truly align with. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So this is a clip from an interview that Kamala Harris was sitting down with CNN with Liz Cheney, and everybody in the background just looks like they want to die. So let's just hear a little bit of what they had to say.
Things cannot be overlooked. And I have said many times publicly, and I'll say it again, in many, many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man, but the consequences of him being president of the United States are brutally serious. There are things that he says that will be the subject of skits and laughter.
I forgot to unmute my mic again. Guys, thank you so much. I was just saying that I think it's so funny how Kamala Harris says that the things that Donald Trump has said or will say are things from that will be a part of skits, that will be a part of humor, that will be a part of comedy. And the reason she is saying that is because Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have been the target of Saturday Night Live relentlessly for the last couple of months. They have provided endless material for satire, for campaign ads, for parody campaign ads, which is why Gavin Newsom got so upset and decided to ban these parody ads in the state of California, because he knows how ridiculous they sound, and not because things are being said that aren't true, but because he knows that this will make people laugh at them and not take them seriously. So, when she says that Donald Trump's words will become part of, are worthy of being made fun of, it's because she knows that she and Tim Walz are being made fun of nonstop. And it's because of who they are. They don't even have to take anything out of context. They don't have to change their words. Everything that they say is worth mocking. And as I've said before many times, everything that the Democrats accuse Republicans of, everything that they say they are worried about Republicans doing, everything they say that Donald Trump will be or will become is who they are. It's something they've done, or it's something that they will do. So it's like the ultimate level of projection. So it's interesting to watch. So, but as I said, you can see everybody there looks like they want to die. Next, Kamala Harris sat down and she was asked about how she handled Biden's cognitive decline. And she's, of course, trying to dodge this question. She doesn't want to be held accountable for knowing that this man was on the cognitive decline, because then she will have, then she has to answer as to why she continued to allow this man to be put out there, or pretend, and to say endlessly that he was fine, that he was sharp as a tack, that he was at the top of his game, repeating everything that the media was saying and KJP was saying from the White House press room. She doesn't want to have to answer for that. So she's just doubling down, saying he was totally fine. But then if he was totally fine, then why did they have to replace him with her? So that doesn't make any sense either. But this is just her just kind of dodging that conversation. So we'll just listen to, let me pull this clip. We'll just listen to maybe about a minute of this, but just her constant inability to take accountability for anything, which is something that you need to be able to do as the president. You need to be able to recognize your actions and your words, and that's something that she just never does. So this is part of that interview.
Can you say that you were honest with the American people about what you saw in those moments with President Biden as you were with him again and again, repeatedly in that time?
Of course. Joe Biden is an extremely accomplished, experienced, and capable in every way that anyone would want if they're president.
And you never saw anything like what happened at the debate night behind closed doors with him?
It was a bad debate. People have bad debates. He is absolutely.
But that's the reason why you're here, and he's not running for the top of the ticket.
Well, you'd have to ask him if that's the only reason why.
What do you think?
I am running for president of the United States. Joe Biden is not. And my presidency will be about bringing a new generation of leadership to America that is focused on the work that we need to do to invest in the ambitions and aspirations of the American people.
It's a judgment question. That's why I asked.
Okay, so no answer there. And when she is asked any kind of question, she has to revert back to this speech about talking about the dreams and aspirations of the American people. It's never like, hey, like, did you recognize what was going on with this man? Was there anything going on behind the scenes? She doesn't even have to come out and say that she knew full well that he has dementia or anything like that, or come out with a medical diagnosis or, anything really. She just, even just acknowledging, like, yeah, we could see he was going downhill. We could see that this was becoming a situation that needed to be addressed. And, there were conversations about whether, he should continue forward. I think that would give her a lot more credibility than just to pretend that he was fine, that they were moving forward in an honest way, that he was capable, and to just dismiss that debate performance as a bad debate, because that just continues to prove that you're not honest, that you're gaslighting people, that you're going to continue down this road of telling people that not to believe what they see with their own eyes, and that you're going to make excuses every time someone asks you about something that you were genuinely a part of. So it's really annoying at this point, because we could all see it with our own eyes. But to even put it to her and say, this is the reason that you were actually in this position is because of his mental decline, and she can't even acknowledge it at that point, is just so, it's annoying at this point. It is so annoying. This last clip I want to touch on with her. This is Kamala Harris's idea of being inspirational. And I think this, more than anything, really demonstrates the stark contrast between her and Trump. Like, Trump just has to show up and people are cheering, they're excited, they've got their signs, they're jumping up and down. She shows up in a room and she tries to be inspiring. And again, people look like they want to fall asleep. They want to crawl under their chairs. They want to do anything. Like, they would rather be anywhere else but with her. Not to mention, to have to sit there and keep a straight face and pretend that this woman is saying anything worth listening to has got to be painful for the people in the audience and the people that have to sit on stage with her, because it just makes my eyes glaze over. It makes me, it makes me want to take a nap. So let's just listen. You guys can tell me if you feel like she is being truly inspirational in this moment, because I don't see it.
I mean, if I can just speak to what people are feeling. We cannot despair. We cannot despair. The nature of a democracy is such that I think there's a duality. On the one hand, there's an incredible strength when our democracy is intact, an incredible strength in what it does to protect the freedoms and rights of its people. Oh, there's great strength in that. And it is very fragile. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. And so that's the moment we're in. And I say do not despair, because in a democracy, as long as we can keep it in our democracy, the people, every individual has the power to make a decision about what this will be. And so let's not feel powerless. Let's not let and I get it, overwhelming nature of this all make us feel powerless, because then we have been defeated. And that's not our character.
Okay, I can't listen to that anymore. You guys let me know if you felt truly inspired by that. And I apologize. My cat is being a pest behind me. She's being an absolute pest. She is a menace. But she is pretty much in all of my live streams these days, because she always has to be in the same room that I am. So you guys can let me know. Did you feel inspired by that? Did you feel uplifted? Did you feel like, you were able to let go of that dark and foreboding feeling that you might have in the pit of your stomach if this woman wins the election? Because, okay, you need to stop. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. She just tends to go on and on and on. And it's not inspiring. It doesn't make any sense. And I think, honestly, the people that sit there and listen to her are trying not to laugh. And, they also probably just want to crawl under their seats. So I just wanted to do just a brief check-in of how our candidates are doing, kind of what the response has been, and just some of the campaign stops that they've made and the interviews they're doing, and just see the overall response. But again, I just cannot believe the stark contrast between the energy from these two candidates, because Trump has all this energy. People truly feel that genuine joy and feeling uplifted and hopeful when they're with him. And Kamala Harris spends 2 minutes straight talking like a Hallmark card, and people just kind of look like they want to die. So, yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to put my cat in another room if she doesn't stop. Okay, so I want to move on to this other issue, and this is kind of in line with Kamala Harris support. So as you guys know, the Kamala Harris campaign has been struggling to gain male support. Now, we know that they've got liberal women on the hook because of, oh my gosh, my cat. Stop it. I'm not even kidding. My cat is trying to climb over top of the screen. Like, she's just like this. I am so sorry. Next time I'm going to put her in another room so we don't have so many interruptions. Give me 1 second. Okay. The cat has left the room. I'm going to make sure to do that in the future. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of this little part. So Kamala Harris, as we know, has been struggling to gain the male support in this country. We know that they've got liberal women on the hook with this issue of abortion. And we know that these women are never going to think about any other issue besides abortion. But they haven't been able to gain that same enthusiasm from men. And perhaps it's because, thankfully, men in general tend to be led more by logic and reason over their emotions. And despite Democrats' best efforts to try and use emotional manipulation on men in the same way that they use it on women, men in general tend to be able to go off of reality. They can't be influenced to ignore the dangers of the radical left, no matter how many beta males they trot out to repeat lines about owing their vote to Kamala Harris on behalf of their daughters. And it's just not having the same effect. However, it's definitely not going to stop them from trying. So this effort towards trying to gain male support it's been centered around this talking point of reshaping masculinity. And I've talked about this a couple times on my channel already. And I just a little pause here. Thank you so much for the super chat, the $2. That is any word about the DoD directive 5240.01. Actually, I did talk about that with Joe Mobley, of whom I do a show with every Thursday evening. We did discuss that last week on the show, so I will post a clip about that. But basically, I do find it interesting, just to shift the conversation a little bit to answer your question. I do find it interesting that they did happen to release that just before the election. It's almost like they're granting more power, to law enforcement to retaliate against even potential threats of violence and unrest related, it could be related to the election. It could not be, but I just find the timing of that particular directive very questionable. And it's almost like they're looking for a reason to retaliate against a particular side of the political aisle, even though we know who is more likely to conduct protests and unrest in the street. We know who is more likely to get out of hand, who people are more nervous about their reaction to the election outcome and the election results. And it's not conservatives, it's not Republicans. So I just found that particular directive interesting. So my cat, she just likes you and wants to be around you. She's no bother. I really don't mind. It's just she's trying to climb on top of my computer and she's pulling at the cords and biting the edge of my lights. So it's when she messes with the electronics that it gets to be a problem, because she's going to start knocking things over. I'm actually going to get like a little cat bed and put it back here, so maybe she can just kind of hang out if I create a little space for her. So that's the only reason she was getting on my nerves. I don't really care if she's playing behind me. Anyway, I want to get back to this Men for Kamala, because this is really, really interesting and really disturbing to me. Basically, what the left is doing, they're using this talking point of reshaping masculinity. And what that means in reality to them is abandoning masculinity altogether. So it's basically telling men to give up their man card and step out of the way because men are useless. And the only thing that they're good for is to vocalize their support for female leadership and female decision making. So as we've seen, I mean, the left has spent years telling men that masculinity is toxic and blaming men for all of society's problems and all of women's problems. However, lucky for you guys, they're willing to accept men back into the fold, but you have to prove that you've been reformed. And the way to do that is to pledge your support to a female president, and also to tell the world that you're voting for a woman because your daughters and all of the other women in your lives need abortions. So to set that up, an example was set by Andy Cohen, Ben Stiller, and Doug Emhoff and Doug's daughter Ella as they were discussing this thing where dads need to throw their support behind Kamala Harris on behalf of their daughters. So this is what that conversation looked like in case you missed it.
Say this is the time to really show your support for your daughters.
What do I love about being a girl dad? I love how much smarter she is than all the guys in the room already. I can tell that she's going to be a powerhouse. She is already at 2.5.
My daughter's 22 and a half, is a feminist, incredibly strong, and has really just inspired me in so many ways. I love her.
I'm the proud dad of Ella over here.
My vote for Kamala is an investment in my daughter's future.
I agree. I'm right there with you.
When the Dobbs decision came out 2+ years ago, I heard from Kamala right away. And then the next person was Ella. She texted me right away, essentially saying, we need to fight. This is not just an issue for women. This is an issue for men and families. And this is one of the many, many reasons why we've got to elect Kamala as president.
Never in my lifetime did I think that we would be having to fight for this and the fight for our own bodies. And I think it's really important for the men to step up and show that they actually support us and they're willing to put things on the line to help us. All the dads out.
Oh my goodness. So Andy Cohen says, yep, Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller, yes, Ben Stiller. And we've got some face palms by Ozzy Cortez. Yep. Andy Cohen says his 2-year-old daughter is smarter than all of the guys in the room. And Ben Stiller discloses that his 22-year-old daughter is a feminist. And then there's Doug Emhoff, who conveniently has yet to respond to the allegations of impregnating the nanny that used to babysit Ella, as well as hitting an ex-girlfriend in public. He hasn't really denied any of those things yet. But he says that the least he could do is to support abortion for his little girl. I just have to say, these men are weak and they are cowards. They have decided to go along with this forfeiture of masculinity, and they are pretty much willingly throwing themselves into the public square to be mocked and ridiculed. They have no self-respect whatsoever, and they are bowing down and saying what the women in the room have ordered them to say, and then they will go back to their corner until women have use for them again. So that's what reshaping masculinity is to the Democrat Party. But I think and I'm sure most of you probably know where I'm going with this, but I think what makes me the most angry about this situation is that we have real men, real fathers in this country that are trying to step up on behalf of their daughters. I want to share this. This is a clip I saw probably a couple of months ago, and this was a father showing up to the school to talk about his daughter's friends that are just becoming so increasingly discouraged when they have to compete against boys in their track meets. And he is just begging people to understand how devastating this has become for young girls. So let's listen to him, because I really think that every man and every father is going to resonate with this. And this is the fight that we really should be fighting for our girls in this country. And that people like Doug Emhoff and Ella Emhoff, this is what they stand for. It's because of them and their side that we have fathers that are having to question what the heck is going on.
We're seeing more biological males coming as females, and they're dominating sports right now. Sorry. My daughter didn't run her favorite sport yesterday because a guy came and he's dominating. She has 13 CIF patches and didn't run because we're allowing this to come into our schools and take opportunities away from our girls. I'm not a crier. I'm just angry and I'm frustrated why we let an average male athlete, biological male, can come in and be a top female. You can take the times I ran my freshman year. I would have won the state of California 35 times in a row. That's the difference between a male and a female, but we continue to allow this. These girls are discouraged, they feel hopeless, and they're quitting. We need to make it stop. I'm done. I'm so done with it. And I'm gonna leave it 53 seconds on there because it's just common sense and it needs to be fixed. Stop taking things away from our little girls.
Yeah, so that is just one of the many speeches I have seen from fathers that are actually stepping up about the issues that matter to their daughters. And I can tell you what, abortion is one of those things that, sorry, now my, that should not be as high on the priority list when we have things like this happening, when there really is no future for girls sports and they're wondering what the heck is going on. This is another one. I have one more clip here that this is a father. And I mean, and this just makes me sick because his daughter is the same age as my daughter. And I was having a conversation with my husband about this. Like, what would we do in this situation if our daughter came home and said that there was a boy in her bathroom, that she no longer had her privacy? So this is a father taking his daughter to the school board meeting, calling them out for allowing this to happen. So let's just have a really quick listen.
Welcome, Mr. Matthews.
Hey, all right. I see cowards. First off, quit smiling. Why are you smiling? All I see, the one girl that went to the bathroom and went to the office to try to have something done about it, they said they couldn't do it because of Title IX, correct? Well, there is something you can do. You can create policy that goes out to the girls that says they can use the staff bathroom. One person on this board with a conversation told me that they can't turn away the girls from the staff bathroom. So why aren't you doing anything? My daughter, right here, sweetheart, tell these people, do you want a little boy to watch you pee?
No,
No. Why?
because it's inappropriate.
It's inappropriate. My 8-year-old daughter knows it's inappropriate, and yet y'all sit there silent. One of you told me that your personal views don't align with the views you show to the public. Cowards.
I wanted to just show a couple of those clips because, like I said, we have these men that are standing with Kamala Harris on this one issue of abortion, yet these are the fights that real fathers are standing up to on behalf of their daughters to ensure that the girls in this country actually have a future. Because as it stands now, thanks to the Democrats and the LGBTQIA community, of whom Ella is a loud and proud advocate for, women and girls are no longer recognized in America. And while Kamala Harris and her campaign have been screaming about the loss of protections of Roe v. Wade, they have nothing to say about the actual protections of Title IX that no longer exist. Because without the word woman being legally tied to individuals that actually have female anatomy, then no other law regarding women will have any actual impact or protection of women, because any law you write for women now includes men. So for these men to brag that their daughters are feminists shows how they truly just don't understand the things that they support or they don't care to understand the things that they support because they are sacrificing their daughters on the altars of feminism and wokeness. And these are ideologies that they work to strip everything away from women that make women who we are, and they pit women against their own unborn babies, and they convince women that having a family is like the worst thing that they could do, and they pit women against men and convince women that they need to be men, and while also telling them that a man in a dress has more rights than they do. So there's nothing to be proud of in saying that your daughter is a feminist or part of the woke left. And I honestly, like, I can't think of anything more cowardly than a father voting based on the idea that their daughter needs access to abortion to be happy. And it is definitely my belief that if that is your position, you have abandoned your duties as a father to uplift and protect your daughter. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments. Let's look at a couple of comments. Says, this blows my mind. And they say they don't transition kids. BS, they even do it in Texas. Yes, that's where I live. I am in Texas. And while I am grateful that we moved here from Colorado, I know that this state has plenty of this crap going on here. It's just absolutely unbelievable. So I think just that whole conversation, when we see guys get up and say, this is our duty as fathers to protect our daughters so that they can get abortions, is completely ridiculous. And not to mention, as we know, so much of the abortion industry is used by males to conceal, their behavior in abusive relationships or conceal behavior of predators, to take women into these facilities so, they can get a baby terminated and not have evidence of, the crimes that they are committing against women. So I know that that's not all cases, but so much of that does happen. So really, the abortion industry is not uplifting and empowering to women at all. So again, it just shows me how much these men just have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what they stand for. They have no idea what women really need. They have no idea what rights are really under attack. And it's disgusting when they don't care to find out. As Rock Zalt says, inappropriate is the polite word. Kids are a blank slate. And in grade 4, my friend was caught playing more than just doctor with a girl. Society needs to protect them, not encourage them. And, what's interesting about that conversation is how many instances I have seen. There was a news story that just kind of exploded in a school district about an hour away from where I am. It's in Rockwall ISD. And apparently there was this teacher being inappropriate with students, and essentially the crimes were covered up. The things that they were doing to a particular little boy were covered up. And I feel like this is happening more and more in schools, where it used to be almost, it was unheard of, and probably because we didn't have social media, at least in part, but it was unheard of to hear of these things happening with teachers. And not to say that it didn't, but when they did, the schools, immediately took action. They got rid of these people. Everybody in society understood that this was something that was unacceptable, and we rallied together, and this was something we were united on, that this had no place in our education system. But now we hear about these things happening all the time. And the only time that we ever hear about it is because maybe a student exposes it or a parent exposes it, and we find out how much the schools are doing to actually conceal these people. So, when you say that these were your experiences as a kid, when, kids were actually held accountable for this kind of behavior, we had teachers that were held accountable for this kind of behavior. It's something that's being covered up and concealed and unfortunately normalized. It's just really, really disgusting. There is one more story that I want to discuss with you guys, and let me make sure that I have my clips lined up. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have heard this. This is a story that's definitely not getting enough attention right now, and it needs to be talked about. And it's about this woman named Bevelyn Williams, who was ordered to turn herself in on, I believe it was October 16th, to begin her 3.5-year sentence in federal prison. So Who is this woman and why is she facing such a significant punishment? Because it sounds to me, based on that particular sentencing, that she must be some kind of out of control criminal. She must have burned down a building or attacked police officers or marched in the streets threatening to dismantle the American system and threatened violence against anybody who stood in her way and burned an American flag while she was at it. I mean, that's what you would think of when you think of a 3.5-year prison sentence in a federal prison, but that's not even close. So if you've been paying attention over the last few years, you know that our justice system has become increasingly more based on politics and used as a weapon to target people who the left sees as a threat to their regime, or to go after people that they think might inspire others to stand up to them. And thus far, it's been really easy to focus on this tyrannical machine who like to call themselves Democrats, but they're really authoritarians, and to focus on how they've specifically targeted Trump, throwing everything that they can at this man, inflating his crimes, placing one set of standards on him while their own side does the same things and gets away with them, or how their criminal behavior just goes completely ignored entirely. But the worry, of course, has been if they can do this to Trump, then they can do this to us. But that is not a past tense scenario these days. The justice system is currently being used to target conservatives, and anyone who sets a toe out of line, or it's being used towards people that they can make an example of, like Daniel Penny when he took out that guy that was harassing people on the New York subway. And we can see how the justice system is just becoming increasingly unjust. So again, one of these stories that has recently been circulating on social media that's not been getting enough attention is about this woman. And let me just pull up her. Oops. I'm just clicking all the wrong buttons today. Her name is Bevelyn Beatty, and she's going to tell us, I'm going to play a clip and she's going to tell us exactly what happened. But just to set this up, 4 years ago in 2020, as the world was completely shut down due to this super virus, Bevelyn noticed that, interestingly, one of the things that stayed open consistently were abortion facilities. And that didn't sit right with her. So she organized a rally/protest outside of a Planned Parenthood in New York, where she was living at the time. And a group of people gathered outside of this facility to peacefully protest and pray for the women who were going to go through these procedures. There were police present at the time at this rally, and there were no incidents of violence. There were no altercations. She didn't have any interaction with the police officers. There were no warnings, no indications that anything was wrong. And from what I know, there were no incidents involving anybody at the facility. So everything was fine. Police officers showed up to make sure that nothing got out of line. But from what we know, there were no situations where the police actually had to get involved, which I think is important to remember. So everybody went home. This was, I believe, a 2-day event, but everybody went home. It wasn't until later, and she specifically points out that this was after Trump was out of office, that now there were charges being brought against her. And in 2022, after the so that was one set of charges that were brought against her. And then in 2022, after the Dobbs decision, she found out that they had drummed up even more charges against her for the same incident. And it was at that point that it was taken to a federal level. So I have this clip here. It's about 3 minutes long, but I do think it's important to hear how this all played out and have her kind of explain what's going on. And again, this is really important to understand because this is something that I've heard multiple times happening. It's becoming more frequent. So when we want to talk about our rights and our justice system, this is what we need to be aware of.
Well, what's so crazy is that I'm indicted right now. I was found guilty, and I'm sentenced to 41 months in federal prison for preaching the gospel in front of an abortion clinic. Exactly that. The event happened in 2020, okay? Police were on site both days of the event. I was not arrested. I was not detained. I had no type of charges or forthcomings with the police at all. Once Trump was out of office, they sued me on an injunction to keep me 30 feet from the building. And so because I had moved to Tennessee, I just went and settled without admission of guilt because I was no longer in the state. And then in 2022, right after Dodson was overturned, they beefed up the charges and indicted me on a federal charge with the secret grand jury that they had that I was not aware of. And they indicted me with face and conspiracy of face for the exact same event that I wasn't arrested at, that I had no kind of police encounters with. The police were on site there, and they went ahead and indicted me for face. Basically, they said things like me saying, no peace for the wicked, and we cancel this place in the name of Jesus. Those are forms of threats. Me talking to women, and I think one day of the 2-day event, 150 women were scheduled to do abortions. None showed up. That they considered that obstruction. You're interfering with women's care. And I'll never forget this. Before they sent the jury back to deliberate, the jury was told, this is not about the Bible. This is not about religious beliefs. This is about women's rights. And I was devastated to see the jury come back with a guilty verdict, but to preach the gospel and preaching things out of the Bible that may seem warfare, it may sound like warfare, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm invoking threats and violence. I'm speaking in the spirit. So yeah, they found me guilty, and the judge sentenced me to 41 months in prison. And what's so crazy is that my lawyer, who's appealing it now, he said in normal cases, something like this wouldn't have even gone federal. And he said for them to sentence you to 41 months, which the judge said in front of me, she said, well, I'm going to make an example out of you. You had 65,000 people watching you at a time, and people need to know what the consequences are when you interfere with women's rights. She said it straight up. And so they didn't care about me being a mother. They didn't care about me being a stay-at-home mother. They didn't care about the fact that I'm not a repetitive offender. Didn't care less. They gave me 41 months and 2 years supervised release.
All right. So that is what is happening with her. And just as a side note, you guys have heard me talk repeatedly about how the issue of abortion has been used as this massive tool of manipulation. That's all it is at this point. It has nothing to do with healthcare, has nothing to do with women's rights. It has become this cult. And they're trying to, it's become a cult for women. And of course, they're now trying to make it a cult for men. But they really have made it seem like abortion is the be all and the end all of our rights in America, which is vile because it goes against the good and righteous values that our country was founded upon. But this is just another way that it's been used as a manipulation tactic, because this judge literally told this jury that they need to put abortion above the Bible, to prioritize abortion over their belief in God and Jesus Christ. And she didn't even say, this is about the law. They said this, it was about one belief system versus another belief system. To me, that speaks volumes. So she was supposedly in violation of the FACE Act, which is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which is something that was signed in, I believe, during the Clinton administration, but it's rarely been brought up or used. And what I really think is important to note is also that everything that is being thrown at this woman should have been used against every single one of the thousands of violent protesters in 2020. Every single one of the protesters when the college kids were shouting in favor of Hamas and blocking Jewish students from going to their classes and threatening Jewish students with violence. And some Jewish students were actually attacked and physically harmed. But because Bevelyn, she's being charged with a non-violent crime for unlawful assembly. That's the only thing on her paperwork. Yet she's facing one of the highest sentences ever passed to someone with this type of accusation. And then, of course, we saw that there were countless other protesters who were actually violent, and they had their actions dismissed because they were fighting for the right cause. They were fighting for something that aligns with the left, like burning down buildings and supporting terrorist organizations. So we have a little bit of an article here that just kind of describes a little bit more about what Bevelyn is being accused of. And it says, Williams will be surrendering to a nonviolent, low-level facility for unlawful assembly for 3.5 years. Her attorney, in the meantime, will appeal the judge's denial for her to stay home, as her full appeal goes to the appellate court. She hopes she will be able to return home in the next month to be with her family as she appeals her full conviction. According to Williams, the judge told her that she was a danger to the streets and society, and that's why she refused to request to remain at home during the appeals process. So all of this is about, and this is Bevelyn speaking. She says, all of this is about me being violent, all of this stuff like that. Don't let the media play you. I'm going to jail, and my category of offense is unlawful assembly. I'm going to jail for 3.5 years for unlawful assembly. I believe that speaks for itself. And I completely agree, because she's not being charged with anything violent. She said herself repeatedly that during those protests, she had no interaction with the police at all and didn't even know that she had done anything illegal until months later, and they brought this case against her. So the question, of course, is, does the punishment fit the crime? And there's this other guy that I follow on TikTok, and I really enjoyed his take on it. So let's listen to just a little bit of what he had to say. Here we go.
Last week, pro-life activist Bevelyn Williams was sentenced to 41 months in federal prison for blocking the entrance to an abortion clinic in New York. In June 2020, Bevelyn and a friend defied COVID lockdowns and protested while blocking the doorway to the main entrance of a Lower Manhattan Planned Parenthood. She was just convicted and sentenced for violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, the FACE Act. Yes, that's a real federal law, thanks to Bill Clinton and Chuck Schumer. A rarely prosecuted crime. The mother of a 2-year-old daughter just got sentenced to 3.5 years for violating it. Federal courts said that she threatened patients and staff members at the Reproductive Health Center, aka abortion clinic, and pressed her body against the door, refused to move, injuring the hand of a volunteer. Can we just pause and think about that for a second? Summer of 2020, when people were in the streets almost every single day, protesting for BLM, blocking roads, major highways, entrances to government buildings, hospitals, people's personal homes. One of the only people to get in trouble for that entire summer is a Black Christian lady protesting in front of an abortion clinic, preaching and praying and turning girls around. 3.5 years in federal prison for blocking an entrance. Seems extreme, doesn't it? During Bevelyn's sentencing, the prosecutor said that a harsh penalty is deserved because due to her protest, 150 women that were scheduled did not show up to get their services. Who is this U.S. attorney that pushed for such a harsh penalty? Bevelyn Williams started his career as a law clerk under Judge Merrick Garland, recommended for U.S. Attorney Southern District of New York by Chuck Schumer, appointed by Joe Biden. U.S. Attorney Bevelyn Williams is best known for overseeing the Ghislaine Maxwell case and handling of the FTX Sam Bankman-Fried case. Black Christian mother protesting BLM and abortion. They couldn't let that happen. Needed to make an example.
So I think that says a lot about what is going on here. And I mean, Bevelyn has said that she didn't hurt anyone and she didn't injure. She has disputed the claim that she injured a clinic worker's hand. And I honestly think that if that was actually going on, then she probably would have had more of an interaction with the police. But as we know, at the time, the police were hesitant to interact with anybody at any kind of rally because they were being attacked. But in my opinion, the danger that this judge thinks Bevelyn is to society is the danger of speaking out against abortions and talking women out of killing their babies. And the example that she is trying to make out of Bevelyn is not about breaking the law. It's to send a message to pro-lifers that we need to stay silent entirely. And this is why it was so infuriating to me. Probably, I mean, it's not as bad now, but probably a couple of months ago, when people would get upset about Trump not being pro-life enough because he has said he won't sign a federal abortion ban. But, I can understand not liking Trump's position, but at least under Trump, we will continue to have the right to fight for babies. But under Kamala Harris, I wholeheartedly believe that work is going to stop. And the example that they're setting with Bevelyn Williams, at least in my opinion, and what seems to be supported by evidence of their own actions, is what they will do on a broader scale if Kamala Harris gets into the White House. Because, I mean, ultimately, I think none of us have a problem with using people as an example for what happens when you break the law. I would love to see this administration use the military and go after every single one of these Venezuelan gangs and show them what happens when you pull the crap that they're pulling right now, when you try to take over apartment complexes, when you threaten people. I would love it if they would lock people up who steal and assault innocent people and say, if you terrorize a community, you're going to go to jail. Because consequences are a great deterrent. But all of the things that I just listed are just a few examples of what is being allowed to happen in this country, while the only person that they want to make an example of is someone who stands against abortion. So that's the message that they want to send, is to silence the pro-life movement. The last thing I want to show here, this was actually a video of Bevelyn Beatty's husband and what he had to say as he was taking his wife to serve her sentence at this federal facility. So here is that.
So right now, I'm about to drive my wife to a federal facility she has to surrender herself there. And this is due to the Harris-Biden administration. And any husband in this country, anyone that's married knows, any mother, any father knows that the separation from your loved one, the separation from a mother and a daughter at 2 years old is traumatic, and no American citizen should have to experience this in this country. Obama has the audacity to speak to black men and tell black men they need to vote for Kamala Harris, when Kamala Harris administration has separated me from my wife and my wife from her daughter at 2 years old for unlawful assembly. My wife is facing 3.5 years for unlawful assembly and federal time, y'all. Okay, federal time. And it's devastating for our family, but we're going to get through this. But I want people to know in this country, mothers, fathers, single mothers, that this cannot be tolerated. And you should not vote for Kamala, because voting for Kamala would do things like this, right? It's unacceptable. And yeah, that's what I have to say. That's what I have to say regarding that. The Biden-Harris administration made me a single father. I always envisioned growing up to be married and have my child, and that's what we did. We did things the right way. Even if you don't do things the right way, you don't make a father a single father. You don't do things like that. And for the fact that Obama is going to go lecture black men and tell black men they need to vote for Kamala Harris, and this is what she's doing to black families in this country. She's been doing this even in California, if you look at her record. So Americans, go out and vote, but I encourage y'all, I implore y'all to vote for number 45, Donald Trump.
Google, mommy gonna miss you. I love you so much. I love you, pretty girl. And I love you too, baby.
So right now,
oh, that is just... So yeah, she has a 2.5-year-old daughter. She is getting ready to go spend 3.5 years in federal prison, being separated from her child. And again, this isn't this is not about not facing consequences, but I think it is blatantly clear that these consequences have been inflated because of the situation, because of what Bevelyn stands for. And this husband is going to drop his wife off to spend time in jail for standing up for babies. And he now has to figure things out as a single dad for the next couple of years. And their 2.5-year-old daughter is going to be without her mom, which is absolutely crazy to me. I definitely think we need to pray for this family, pray for our country, because clearly they have an agenda. And of course, we've heard repeatedly from the Democrats are fear-mongering and saying that people on the right want to imprison women who get abortions and want to criminalize them and all these things, but they're imprisoning people who stand up against it. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please pray for Bevelyn Beatty's family, pray for her husband, pray for her daughter, because it is just absolutely heartbreaking to see. But this is not going to stop. It's not going to stop. And I wholeheartedly believe that if Kamala Harris gets into office, we're going to see a lot more of this. You're not going to be able to do any work in the pro-life movement or anything that really aligns with our values as a country, because it's everything that they stand against. And they have made it known that they will target people that stand up to them, that encourage dissent, that encourage individual thought. So that is all I have for you guys today. Rockzalt says, I hope one of Trump's first acts is to get her out of prison and get trained pro-life advocates in every abortion clinic. I completely agree. I've heard people saying the same thing, that they hope that Trump's first act is to dismiss her charges, to, free her from this sentence. So I hope that that happens as well. Anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you guys being here, enjoying the conversation, putting up with my cat, trying to climb the blinds. Don't worry, I love her. No cats were harmed in the filming of this live stream. She's awesome. She's just a pest. She's a kitten, so she has to climb on things, and she loves to be around me. So I can't fault her for that. Thank you so much for being here. Please be sure to hit that like button. Make sure that you are subscribed. I have a few more videos planned for the rest of the week. I appreciate your support on my channel. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one.